Hello and welcome to this short introduction to HIPPO version 3.1, the tool to manage, optimise and control your Informatica estate. This is a short set of slides which gives you some background to HIPPO, gives you an overview of the tool set and tells you how you can obtain value from HIPPO. Let's start with what Informatica have to say about HIPPO. I'll let you read the slide. So some very complimentary things there from Scott Geffrey from the Informatica Marketplace, and Informatica have also awarded HIPPO their seal of approval, as you can see at the bottom of the slide. HIPPO is completely complementary to PowerCenter, runs on all of the same platforms which PowerCenter runs on, and supports PowerCenter, any version of PowerCenter version 8.x and above and 9.x and above. So let's talk first of all about PowerCenter. Informatica have very successfully grown PowerCenter from a data warehousing tool to a powerful data integration product capable of meeting 100% of an organisation's data movement requirements. By combining PowerCenter with data quality and other tools, the data integration technology has essentially become a strategic asset which provides data integration services as a utility to the organisation. However, a data integration utility is neither unlimited in capacity, cheap to operate, nor always freely available upon demand, and this is the challenge which HIPPO seeks to address. So here are some of the kinds of questions which people involved in the management and operation of a data integration environment typically ask themselves. Do I have available Informatica resources, and if so, when? What are the trends in throughput, performance and capacity in my environment? Is my Informatica estate, project, workflow or session performing at an optimum level? And just as pertinently, what is that optimum level? And where are the bottlenecks in my environment and what's causing them? HIPPO addresses these questions in a number of ways, but let me call out 5 main benefits which I see coming from HIPPO. First of all, you have visibility of Informatica resource availability. That's now and over time. You have a deep insight into performance improvement opportunities. So number 2 is especially targeted at developers in the Informatica community. And number 3, we have effective management of a shared resource, making the best use of available capacity and best practice. 4th is application of local performance thresholds and standards. HIPPO tells you how fast and how performant your environment is, and allows you to set local thresholds for new processes and for processes which perhaps degrade in performance over time. And lastly, HIPPO enables you to accurately forecast future capacity needs based on personalised metrics gathered from your own environment. They're not generalist, and they're not coming from some standard spreadsheet somewhere. These are forecasts based on your own environment. Okay, so that's the kind of benefits which HIPPO will provide. Let's look at what the actual value of these benefits might be. On this slide I'm going to estimate the year 1 return on investment from HIPPO based on a team of 6 developers, 3 support staff and a 3-node Informatica environment. Let's look first of all at log trawling. As you know, developers spend a lot of time log trawling. HIPPO can return a 100% ROI just from a 4% improvement in productivity by developers alone. And what that would mean would be, for this size of team, spending just 1.5 hours less per week log trawling. That gives you a return on investment straight away, and I would argue that your developers are going to be a good deal more productive than that. Number 2, we have 200% ROI from HIPPO if you can find additional capacity instead of investing in one new Informatica node for your environment. So because HIPPO is a 200% ROI in HIPPO can be realised by finding additional capacity instead of having to invest in an additional Informatica node. This assumes average hardware, software and commissioning costs for one node of just $100,000, which I'm sure you'd agree is a fairly conservative estimate. So just by being able to avoid purchasing a new node, you're able to get 200% return on HIPPO. And lastly, 100% return on investment from HIPPO can be obtained by increasing the recharge accuracy of a shared grid. So if you charge back to projects the use of a shared grid, and you can increase that accuracy from 80% to 100%, then you'll get 100% return on ROI. And one thing I can guarantee you is that HIPPO will enable you to obtain a 100% accurate recharge, because HIPPO can trace every single process running in your Informatica environment back to the projects which you create. So, how does HIPPO deliver this value? Well, HIPPO analyses and profiles the performance of your entire Informatica infrastructure, extracts data from the Informatica repository, integration service, host operating system, storage and network, and as you can see from the pie chart on the right hand side, only 22% of the information in HIPPO comes from the repository, 28% comes from the transitory metadata and the integration services, and the remaining 50% comes from across the infrastructure. HIPPO combines these sources of metadata together, correlates them and interprets them to give you a really unrivaled perspective on the performance of your Informatica environment. Next up, let's look at HIPPO tools. HIPPO is not one single tool. It's made up of 9 tools, and these 9 tools are variously applicable across the 5 typical roles within an Informatica environment. So on the left we have developer, support, Informatica admin, capacity planner, DBA and sysadmin. Along the top we have the tools themselves. We have notification center, dashboard, resources, vital signs, activity monitor, search, analysis, capacity planner and timeline. And as you can see, a tool like timeline can be used by every single person involved in an Informatica environment, and the Informatica administrator can use every single tool within HIPPO. And then you can see for yourself how the other tools overlap between different roles within the Informatica environment. So HIPPO is not a one-size-fits-all. It's made up of a number of very targeted tools, but those tools have an overlapping relevance for people in an Informatica environment. Okay, let's see what kind of impact then HIPPO has on the typical execution of a role in an Informatica environment. Here's a standard Informatica development lifecycle. We develop, we hand over to someone else to do volume testing. They hand it back to us and we tune that process. Eventually we go around the loop again, and eventually we get out of the loop and we schedule and implement that process. We'll let it run, and then we react to issues. If it seems to be running too long or if it fails, then we do something about it. We bring it down into maintenance and we go around the development, test and tune loop again. What we claim with HIPPO is that we do nothing more than completely change the way that the HIPPO development lifecycle works. So instead of development, testing and tuning being discrete steps performed by one or more people, we bring development, tuning and testing together. We provide the metrics so that a developer can extrapolate from their unit testing to work out whether volume testing is likely to be successful, and to take action to address those performance inadequacies right at the development stage, rather than wait till it goes into volume testing and then comes back for remediation and then goes back in again and potentially back to the developer again for remediation. We cut out that loop. We make the process much simpler and smoother and more informed. Once the mapping session or workflow is ready for implementation, then we schedule the session or workflow. And instead of having to react to problems, we set HIPPO to auto-monitor that process. So HIPPO monitors elapsed time, it monitors resource usage, such as CPU and memory, and reports to us when thresholds are breached. We then can plan maintenance rather than reactive maintenance. We have planned maintenance, and then the planned maintenance brings us down, and as I say, once we get down into develop, tuning and testing, then we've got a more efficient process going on there to improve the quality of the code, which then goes back into production. So that's for the developer. Let's look next at problem remediation. This is a situation where you have an overnight issue, and your Informatica support analysts and your Informatica developers, your system administrators and your DBAs get together to solve the problem. As you can see in the screen, they use different sources of information as the basis for their analysis and for their recommendations. Informatica toolset, OS tools and DBA tools are used variously by the different people involved. What HIPPO brings to the table is a shared graphical fault analysis tool. A graphical tool which is easy to understand, which everyone sitting around the table can understand, can use and can share. And what that means is that HIPPO is presenting to them sources of information which they trust. So for system administrators, HIPPO's information comes from the OS. For DBAs, information comes from what the database is reporting. And for the Informatica people, it's coming from the Informatica Integration Service and the Informatica Repository. So these are sources of data which the people sitting around the table are familiar with and will trust, and therefore will have a more productive and more productive and perhaps friendlier discussion, and perhaps more likely to agree a shared set of recommendations than previously would have been the case. Okay, let's look at HIPPO and the Informatica Administrator. There are 7 main points here of which describe how HIPPO can help the Informatica Administrator. I'm going to call out just a few of them. HIPPO will monitor schedule overlap. We all know that schedules, when they're first implemented, are very neat, and over time, because data volumes change, they begin to bleed into one another, and that overlap causes performance issues. HIPPO will monitor and report on that. HIPPO will also help the administrator recognise patterns, because HIPPO profiles and trends over days, weeks, months, and even years. And lastly, as I mentioned already, HIPPO will identify resource shortfall and project contention. So HIPPO will display the contention and number of jobs simultaneously operating in your Informatica environment right there graphically on the screen. So you can see where project contention is occurring and you can address it. You can balance out that load on your system and ensure that an adequate share of resources is being provided to each of the constituent projects in your environment. Lastly, let's look at capacity planning. The capacity planner in an Informatica environment needs to understand trends in CPU, memory and data movement. They need to understand those trends in terms of time. They need to understand it in terms of projects over time. They need to understand it also in terms of nodes over time. That's exactly what HIPPO does. It gives a 360-degree view of CPU, memory and data movement, and allows trends to be identified and capacity planning to be done ahead of time, so that you can plan investment, or you can plan replatforming, or you can plan to perhaps to rebalance where the load is being executed. So that's HIPPO for the different job categories within an Informatica environment. Let's look at HIPPO's features at a glance. This is a HIPPO menu on the left-hand side here. I'm going to quickly run through what they are. We have the Notification Centre, which raises personalised alerts on time and resource thresholds. We have the Dashboard, which is your organisation's top 6 most important charts. Resources gives us CPU, memory, file system and data movement metrics. Vital Signs is a real-time status monitor for your environment. Activity Monitor is a real-time and historic view of every workflow and session running across your entire Informatica environment. It's an ideal tool for the Informatica support analyst. And next up we have search. We do simple searches by name and by date. We also search by elapsed time, by resource usage, amount of memory or amount of CPU used, and also for DBAs a special feature which allows them to search by SQL statement which is executed in the database. So this is a fully resolved SQL statement which has been executed, for instance, by Oracle. The DBA can plug that into HIPPO, and HIPPO will tell the DBA which session and workflow is responsible for the execution of that piece of SQL. Next up we have analysis. So this is a HIPPO workshop in effect. It's a deep dive, a complete resource for your tuning activities, where it goes into a great deal of detail about where the tuning opportunities in your environment are. Capacity planning is the places I just mentioned to plan capacity for Informatica environments, and timelines are a feature we're particularly proud of. It's a unique interactive view of resource usage and activity. Next up we have Administrator with all of HIPPO's administration features. And finally we have the deep dive down into individual workflows and the workflow option to analyse performance and trends. And we have the drill down to individual sessions to analyse performance and trends in those sessions.